This is Jeremy Maddux. Have you ever dozed off driving at 65 miles per hour? I have.
It's a voicemail unlike anything you've ever heard before. There are 2 minutes worth of noises, bizarre ones, but very little actual talking. Authorities confirmed the disturbing middle-of-the-night call came from Henry McCabe's cell phone. It was Labor Day, September 7th at 2:28 in the morning. McCabe's worried wife heard the message.
Isn't my cell phone connected?
Minnesota Community Policing Services is a nonprofit agency and acts as a go-between with police and the Liberian community. The leader is trying to help the family make some sense of this recording.
The growls turned to high-pitched moans.
Like he's moaning in pain.
Like moaning in pain.
The tortured grunts suddenly stop. There is silence. Then someone, either Henry or another person, says, "Stop it."
I try to picture where he was, what it might have been like, what circumstances would have made him sound like that.
The voicemail is in stark contrast to other articulate recordings of McCabe speaking at an event. He's a state auditor.
What is the justification? What is the right thing to do?
The message is one piece of evidence Mounds View police are reviewing. The police chief tells me even the FBI is analyzing the recording and voices for clues. The chief says the investigation took deputies here on Tuesday. To Rice Creek Park, which borders New Brighton, Mounds View, and Fridley, all areas where McCabe was reported seen or a cell phone ping placed him. Ramsey County Water Patrol searched, but came up empty.
What you just heard was the last record of when Henry McCabe, a Liberian American citizen from Minnesota, who went missing on Labor Day 2015 and was found 2 months later when he was pulled from Rush Lake in New Brighton. He was drinking at Pavlitsky's on 65 with a friend, William Kennedy, and Henry had become so intoxicated that his friend Kennedy had actually taken his wallet from him so he could not buy more alcohol. And as they were calling it a night, Henry asked to be dropped off at a Holiday gas station to call for someone to pick him up. Why you don't just take your friend home, I don't know. I think maybe he may have offered and Henry declined. Cell phone records indicate that there were pings from his phone in Silver Lake, on Silver Lake Road, and New Brighton, where, as I said, his body was recovered 2 months later. Now, that voicemail you heard at the top of the show was not the only voicemail. It's just the only one that has been released for the public consumption. That phone call was received by his wife, Corrine, who was conveniently in California at the time. The other voicemail was left for his brother. And I don't understand why this other voicemail is just the elephant in the room with this whole thing. But to this day, it's never been played. Perhaps the content is too disturbing. But clearly, you hear a man in distress there, possibly drugged, but clearly in distress, and I can almost detect a motorboating sound in that clip, as if he's being held underwater. Who knows? Is he being waterboarded? I don't know. Now, we can talk all about the smiley face killer theory on a later episode, but there is a theory that is gaining traction with some independent investigators that some collective of people are drowning young college-aged men in shallow water when they're by themselves and intoxicated, and then leaving some sort of graffiti behind on a nearby tree or something as sort of a calling card, and it's always a smiley face with semi-demonic proportions. There are enough college-age men who have died of drowning to make the connection that to identify a pattern that would be becoming of a serial killer's modus operandi. That's not to say that that's what's happening here with Henry McCabe, but it's fishy. And I also find it interesting that originally the Minnesota Community Policing Service had issued a $5,000 reward for any information leading to the recovery of Henry McCabe, dead or alive. And that offer was later rescinded around the end of October when Henry's wife, Corrine, became non-cooperative. And I quote, due to her willingness to mislead the public in this committee. David Singleton of the Minnesota Policing Community Policing Services, which just sounds like such a bureaucratic nightmare. I mean, even the name just emanates this aura. It exudes this aura of just total bureaucracy, which we need much less of. But nevertheless, David Singleton of the Community Policing Services said that, and again I quote, I don't believe that he just wandered that far on his own, and the audio doesn't support the idea that his death is not suspicious. And I agree. Well, the question is, why does whoever is on that voicemail sound, and I guess it's Henry in theory anyway, that he sounds like a fucking demon? I mean, being religious myself, I'm not shy of calling an event supernatural. Not at all. And I think it's foolish to think that science has explained every corner of existence. And deep down, most of you do too. Whether you admit it or not, that's your business. Henry was an employee. He was an auditor of the Minnesota Revenue Department. So he had a cushy government job, but his marriage with Corrine McCabe was said to be on the rocks. It was on the bubble, and apparently their latest check for rent had bounced. That could have played a part in why he was drinking on Labor Day. He just wanted to forget his troubles. And that could also be, and most likely was, why Corrine happened to be in California with the kids on that day. They were probably headed for divorce from all I've gathered here. One interesting thing, I mean, why would a government employee have a bounced rent check. I mean, that's suspicious to me. But one thing interesting that I found is that apparently, and I didn't know this, apparently Minnesota has over 25,000 Liberians living there. It's quite a thriving community. I don't know what it is about Liberia that attracts them to Minnesota, and apparently there's a concentrated amount of Liberians in California where Karine was staying. A leader of the Liberian community in the Twin Cities, and that's all it says here in the Star Tribune article I'm referencing, is that she was a leader of the Liberian community, but it doesn't specify what kind of leader she was, if it was just in spirit, or if she actually had some sort of, I don't know, government title or something, some sort of outreach program, I don't know, but her name was Lovetta Tugby, and she was quoted as saying that, in reference to McCabe having lived previously for 14 years in Liberia before migrating to America, that there was a lot of violence in the old country that may have transferred over somehow. Quoting Lovetta Tugby here, "They would kill without remorse. They've done it for years. We need to find out what happened." Indeed. Well, to this day, no toxicology report has been released, and I may FOIA that myself to get to the bottom of it, but curiously, there were no bruises or signs of struggle on Henry McCabe's body when he was pulled from Rush Lake. Clearly, there is struggle. If you hear that, if you heard that voicemail, there is clearly a struggle being put up of some sort, whether it's internal or if it's external. It only adds another layer of suspicion to the story that there are no signs of struggle and there are no bruises. Someone must have really been knowing where to hit him. Who knows if they used GHB to incapacitate him? If they used a taser on him while he was submerged underwater? Or maybe just plain the devil got him. And if you're afraid to make that jump in cases like these, then you're a moron. And science will not save your soul. I'm going to follow up on this case because it's been of interest to me for some time, but I wanted to share it with you guys now that I have a platform again. And next time, I will share with you my correspondence with the reporter who deliberated over this case when she was reporting on it. And with that being said, joining me in a few moments will be Magnus Blomdahl or Blomdahl. I'm not sure how I'm supposed to pronounce that, but he's a Swedish filmmaker that that did a documentary recently based on one of the most chilling, exotic, uncanny, and gross and disturbing movies I've ever seen. It's almost not a movie, it's so strange. It's called Melancholie der Engel, and the name of Magnus's film that it based on it, the documentary, is Revisiting Melancholie der Engel, and in a few moments we'll be delving into his documentary on this film. That being said, Melancholie der Engel is not a film that you can just order off Amazon. It's very hard to come by. I think you can order it in a box set directly from the filmmaker in his home country of Germany. Or you can find it on YouTube, uncut in all its splendor, with subtitles that may or may not be totally accurate, but I've found them to be pretty satisfying to my overall viewing experience. Basically, Melancholie der Engel is about this man who is terminally ill, and he is meeting up with these friends who he engaged in all this debauchery with when they were young, and now karma is kind of coming home to roost as he has experiences these dark, evil visions and nightmares of the supernatural sort, um, of total sexual chaos. Um, it involves real animal cruelty like Cannibal Holocaust. It involves dead fetuses, necrophilia, bestiality, scat porn, men and women urinating and defecating and vomiting all over each other. And it's just a very deplorable and gross film that somehow still manages to be poetic. And here is the interview with Magnus to prove once and for all just what degenerates we are. Enjoy. And joining me now is the director of a new documentary on one of the eeriest, grossest, most disgusting, disturbing, and all around vile, hate filled movies I've ever seen. Melancholie der Engel, or I guess in English it would be The Angel's Melancholy, and Magnus Blomdahl. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. So, Magnus, tell me first of all. I guess I feel like I need to set up the plot, what plot there is of Melancholy for my listeners,
Mm.
because not a lot of English speaking people have seen this movie, and I know they're missing out. But how would you describe this movie? Because it is a ride, right?
Yeah, for me it's like a new version of Pasolini's old classic, where these group of people get together in a small house and everything collapses, their morality collapses, and it's just an orgy of sex, drugs, and death finally. Um, and it sounds pretty. Um, well, pretty boring maybe, but it's also an artistic movie where the grossness never really gets too extreme until the end of the movie, and from to that point it's also a really beautiful movie, I think.
I agree, and there are so many different hidden meanings in
Mm,
throughout the film, particularly the ending, that you can apply to the cycle of life and death, right?
yeah, yeah,
Um, the director of this film is Marion Doran, and
yeah,
he is the subject of your documentary, right?
yeah. I wanted to meet him maybe 6, 7 years ago when I was writing a book called True Horror. And I tried to reach him for maybe a month or so, but I didn't succeed. So he had to wait a couple of years when I wrote True Horror 2. And then I think I tried for 6 months something to get in contact with him, but it's hard uh, when you haven't got an email, no phone number, nothing. So I just sent emails to maybe 10 different people that I knew had been in contact with him before, and finally I got an answer. And from then, it was all about arranging a meeting in Germany.
Okay. And what were your first impressions of him when you did meet him?
He's a really nice, calm guy actually, and since I didn't know what to expect, just I mean, you read all these rumors on the web before, so I was a bit scared to go there because I didn't really know if I'd spoken to the right person online. Uh, so I didn't know how it looked. I didn't know what to expect, but it ended up being a really pleasant first visit to Germany, and we spoke for about maybe 2 or 3 hours, and then we just drank beer in the bar at the hotel. So it was really nice, and I got back home feeling that it had been a success. But after a week or two, I realized that I, I missed out on so many questions, and actually I had more questions after a meeting than before. So I thought, why don't I just ask him to turning him and Melancholie der Engel into a documentary? And he agreed. So a year after, I went on again with my iPhone, and we went into the tracks of Melancholie der Engel, and he explained the sceneries and what had happened at those places. Yeah, that's basically it.
I feel like I have to do a bit more to really put in perspective just what
Yeah.
what a different movie this really is. Now, basically, if we're going to boil it down to plot essentials here,
Mm.
there is an ill man, he's dying, and his name is Katza, right?
Yeah.
And he's played by actor Karsten Frank, and
Yeah, that's correct.
he has scheduled a reunion of sorts with these two friends that he got into a bit of mayhem with at this old house in the countryside. And I mean, not just a little bit of trouble and drinking, but like mutilation and
Yeah.
orgies and drugs and the whole thing. Now he's having these dreams, these premonitions of his end, and as they're going to reunite at this villa or this cottage or whatever, the violence and the carnage, the chaotic thoughts, they start to materialize again, and they start to act out the same scenarios that they did previously in their youth, right?
Yeah.
Am I doing any justice with that description?
Yeah, I think so. More than I guess. It's so hard to describe. I think it's more, for me. It's more like a feeling than a storyline, actually. And what made me interested in what still makes me interested in the movie is that it is a great example of crossing borders between fiction and reality, I think, because many of those things that happens in the movie happen for real, and as Dora says, as he said to me in an interview, it's like it's shot like a documentary and edited like a fiction film afterwards.
A lot of the things happened in that film. That's a little bit disturbing to think about. Now,
yeah, I mean, some things you see definitely are for real, and some things you can imagine are effects, but it's hard to tell. I mean, there are animals getting killed in the movie, even so small than bugs or anything. But
that part's real, right? Those parts are real.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to really decide what's real and what's not for real, because I mean, Dora he says that it's hard to he doesn't really want to he likes to have people making up stories about the movie and what happened, and he likes kind of the rumors that are spread because it makes him an interesting director, I guess. But I do believe some of the things that he told me about the shooting of the film, and it really makes it more creepy and more interesting of an experience, I think.
Well, I have a major problem with real life animal cruelty in films. I'm used to it from watching Cannibal Holocaust as a 20-year-old, though, so it's not really new to me that this would happen, and I can't let it put me off from watching the movie because it's not going to bring those animals back, But I'm interested to know how much you can get into about this documentary that, as far, I mean, it's called Revisiting Melancholie der Engel, right? So the whole documentary is about the experience of filming this really unusual film. What was the strangest thing you took away from what Dora told you that you can talk about, without giving everything away?
Well, the strangest thing was to follow Dora in the tracks and make him to revisit those places that has actually been haunting him since the shooting of the film, because it was a hellish experiment for him too, and things got out of hand, and what he wanted to be a pretty ordinary shooting turned into a nightmare. And at the end, I don't think he had that much control over what happened. So he the film shot itself in the end, I think. Yeah, and what, regarding extremes of the shooting of the film, I think that um, as it says in my documentary, that I mean they got a real corpse to use in the film from a morgue, and that's a rumor that's been spreading a lot of the internet before, and I guess that's true. And also, yeah, the killing of certain animals, and that is, as you say, I don't defend that in no way. And it's hard if you, I mean, but at the same time, it's kind of hypocritical to if you eat animals every day, and you have Marion Dora that's a vegetarian, he doesn't eat animals at all. Um, he kills one animal for one movie, and that's so much hate just regarding that animal coming from people that eats animals every day. So it's strange that side of it also, I think. But saying that, um, I'm in no way defending it.
Well, now I did not know that about Marion being a vegetarian. So
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
so he did he do it purposely for the film? Then I mean, or
Yeah,
was it going to
it's
die
on the
already?
name of the
Like
art.
with
So
okay. Uh, well, I mean, I'm not condoning it, but I mean, like I said, I'm not gonna not watch the movie again because
no,
of it either. Now, what I would like
I
to
mean you can say there's of course it's wrong, but um, those scenes like in Cannibal Holocaust, they give the film a a heaviness that you can't, I think that you can't reach in another way. And at the same time, it's like if you have the killing of an animal and that's for real, then I guess you as a viewer you hesitate when regarding other effects in the film.
mm,
Oh, if that's for real, then that could be for real as well. So it's all about um, making the viewer lose the balance of what he or her sees, I think.
well, I got the impression just an impression that everybody suffered during the making of this film, right?
Yeah,
Like hardcore. I
yeah.
know that one of the actors is actually a well-known porn star in Europe,
Mm.
Zinza Raggi. I'm terrible with these
Yeah, that's true.
pronunciations, but
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
did he have any interesting stories or anecdotes about him?
Um, well, not about him specifically. Um, well, nothing that I really can speak about.
Mm.
But he had, I think he had an incident after the film where he was sentenced to jail in Colombia or somewhere, I think, for something to do with drugs, I think. So I think that influenced the shooting of the film as well, I think.
Huh. See, yeah, this. I'm sure this is going to be fascinating because it might answer. It might go a long way towards answering some of the questions I've had about this film.
Mm.
Um, so you went where was it filmed exactly? Where was this? It was in the countryside or maybe in the
Yeah,
mountains a little bit.
Dora had this kind of a Bermuda Triangle in the southern parts of Germany, I think. And this house where the film culminates in the end of Angel's Melancholy was in the middle of this Bermuda Triangle. So we went from corner to corner and then slowly getting closer to the middle of the triangle. And I really don't know exactly, or I do, but I can't tell you.
Mm-hmm.
But the cities that we visited, I mean, if you want to know, you can find out so many ways. But it is in some part of Germany, and I've never been there before. and it was a magnificent trip because we walked a lot in the mountains and on large fields, and we climbed in caves and everything, and it was beautiful. And but at the same time, I can imagine the loneliness and the paranoia that you can get when you are there. So I think that had to do a lot with the movie as well. That they were isolated for real in these parts, and that kind of affected them in some ways. And I think it's hard for a viewer to understand how much how these things could happen that happens in the movie. But as you said before, I think that they all lost control, and yeah. I don't know what to say more.
Okay. Now, I know that I'm sure most people who have seen it know that there's a version floating around on YouTube. And that's the only way that I have been able to make sense of the movie due to the subtitles. Yeah. And I'm just wondering, you're German, right?
Yeah, no, I'm Swedish.
Sorry. Yeah, it's right there. Sweden. Sorry. Yeah. So, do you know how accurate that those subtitles are on the YouTube version as compared to the version that may or may not be subtitled that you can order directly from Marion himself? Do you know?
No, I don't. Actually, I don't know. I know that there's a somewhat of an official version being sold in some box sets called the World of Marion Dore, I think. Mm-hmm. And if you're interested, you can always can compare the subs from the YouTube version and that one. But I don't think it's some of the things in the film are so poetic, so I don't think that you actually miss out so much if you haven't seen the movie with the correct subtitles. I think that it's not that much of a story to actually follow to make them that important.
Mm-hmm. Man, yeah, you know, some of those people really suffered in that. I mean, that one poor girl with the colostomy bag, right? The crippled, the cripple who, I mean, she got thrown down the stairs, thrown off the cliff. I mean, well, I mean, the actress didn't, but yeah.
I mean, I tried to interview the actors as well, but it's hard to get in contact with them. I mean, Castor Frank, he's impossible to reach. He doesn't want to speak about it at all, I think.
Okay, interesting thing about Karsten Frank. I actually read that Marion pushed him to the brink, and he may have been up for the role of Carcinoma, the most recent film of Marion's at one point, but Marion asked him to do something so dastardly that he just had to divorce himself from the whole process and from Marion. Do you know if there's any truth to that?
I think that they both like to push things a bit more to the extreme than is necessary, maybe. So that might be true, yeah. Marion is a director that likes to push people, and I think that he's very comparable to, you know, Werner Herzog or some of the other directors that they have their vision and nothing's going to come between their vision and the complete film.
Right. Yeah. You mentioned
that's true. I think
you mentioned Herzog, and yeah. I mean, that was his vision to push that ship over that hill in Fitzcarraldo, and that's a good analogy because that the things that director character in the movie was the frustrations he was having were the same ones that Herzog was having making that film.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, somewhat, but I detect a strong occult element in Melancholy.
Yeah.
Even in the what storyline there is, the scene where he's cutting he's cutting a worm in half. He's cutting a worm in half, and
that's it. Yeah.
Katza is trying to ward off something with a doll in front of his face. I get a distinct feel of something occult going on, and the old man's performance. I think Peter Martell is the name he goes by as an actor for this role. He his performance is very unnerving because he seems to be directing whatever occult magics are going on with the aid of bugs and these severed baby doll parts, and he seems this kindly old gentleman, but he turns on a whim to become violent and pulling the women's hair and kicking them around and everything. I mean, he turns on a dime. I mean,
one of the things that the daughter told me is that he's actually supposed to be a werewolf in the movie, and I couldn't tell that before.
Wait a minute. You're telling me that the old man is like literally.
Yeah, literally, yeah. And if you see it, if you watch it again, there are some clues that that might be true. But at the same time, the movie's supposed to be. I mean, Dora's been. He had to cut away 30 minutes or something, and some of the clues are supposed to be in that part as well. But he arrives, I think, on the night when the moon is full and stuff like that. So it's
that is seriously. This is the most awesome thing that you have just told me. This is seriously blowing my mind because, well, I mean, even though I saw no hint whatsoever other than the moon of him being a werewolf, you're not having me on here, right? You're not.
No, I thought that Dora was having me on when he told me that, but he was really serious about it, so I guess it's true.
That is the weirdest, wildest, greatest thing I've heard in relation to this film. That's like the most helpful thing anyone has ever told me about this film. That right there, it almost feels like a clue or something to something grander. Even though I don't want to get my hopes up too much. Now, Marion,
I think that
No. Go ahead. Keep going.
I think there's many more similar things that you can maybe find in the film if you put if you try hard and if you have the energy. But at the same time, I think it's for me it might be a bit of overwork to try and analyze it in that way because I think it's more of an experience than really getting to understand what it's all about, I think.
Yeah, but you have to.
The trivia is fun.
It is. You have to systematically just totally put all of your morality in check, all your values and beliefs and institutions. You have to kind of break away from them to let this film in, and it is harsh. It is unforgiving, but I think that there is something about life at its most, and nature at its most base and cruel, and maybe even life as nature as an equalizer. Even I don't know. There's something profound in this film, but if you don't, you have to look for it. It's not going to jump out at you, right?
In many ways, I think it's a bit sad that it's so extreme and notorious in many ways. Because if it had been a bit milder in some of the places, this would have been a film for film schools to analyze, or a real classic, I think, because it's so beautiful and it has so many ways of looking at it, but it's so over the top in many places that it kind of get lost in the extreme category, I think.
Right, but touching on the extreme again, and you say that a lot of the things that were captured on camera really happened. I mean, did he really pee on that one woman at the end?
Yeah.
Wow.
It did.
I mean, I know there's a market for that in Germany, but
Yeah, I don't really know how it all went down when they did it, but I think that when I asked Marion about those things, he, um, as I said before, it's in many ways a documentary. So to be able to capture those things, he kind of just had a camera in his hand all the time, and if someone had to go to the toilet, you just start the film.
Just
Just
let it go, right?
yeah, yeah.
Just
So
go
it's
wherever, man. Yeah.
it's hard to plan, but it's if it happens, it happens. So
Huh.
and that's also one of those things that I think that maybe make people turn the other way when they see the film. That it often gets all about those scenes and the gore and the extreme scenes and the sex scenes and stuff like that. But I mean, that is maybe 20 minutes of the movie, and the movie is 2 hours and 40 minutes. So it's such a little part of the whole movie. I think it's a bit annoying that it's so hard for people to see the full picture, but it's understandable as well. I think also.
I think one of the most profound passages to me, and you mentioned that some of the things that they say are poetic.
Yeah.
From the version I've seen, with the subtitles anyway, I had a trouble quite interpreting what I was reading. But when Katza encounters the nun outside of the
church.
Yeah, I wanted to say Abbey. I don't know, but
Yeah.
he says, he recites something that's a lot like a poem. If it was something about if only everyone would lay down on the grass like me, maybe they would see why I'm so happy or something. And I'm butchering that because it was much more profound and poetic than that. But it was something along those lines. And then he puts a bone and a flower in her hands and closes them up. And that seems to be this message about, life and death going together. I mean, it seems pretty obvious, right? I mean,
Yeah, I think so. And the movie as a whole, for me, it is one of the most profound movies about the endless topics of life and death. I think there's haven't been a single movie that has made me think more about life and death than Melancholie der Engel. I think it's beautiful in that way. It really it makes you suffer, and at the same time it holds your hand, I think.
Yeah. What was the first movie that introduced you to Mary's work? Was it Cannibal?
Yeah, it was Cannibal.
Okay. Now, that was based on a true story of Armin Maiwes, who wanted his. Was he the one that wanted his lover to eat him, or he was the one that actually did start to eat his lover?
Well, he actually started to eat him, I think.
Okay. So they had this contract where one was to be cannibalized by the other in an act of love, or so to speak. Now, you have to be in a pretty dark place to want to go there, but I understand that Marion, this is probably the movie that Marion is most well known for, is Cannibal, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what he's up to now? Is he still making films? Is he working on anything now?
Well, I can't really say so, but I think it's going to be some kind of an announcement in the near future. I think, but I really can't tell at this moment.
Do you keep in touch with him?
Yeah, we do from now and then, but it's only mail contact, emails, but not that often, no.
Okay, now that we've gotten all of that out of the way about the movie, and I hope you don't mind me keeping you for a little bit longer, but let's talk about your movie. And I'm sorry it took so long to get to this point, but let's talk about your movie. What are you seeking in revisiting Melancholie der Engel?
Well, first of all, when you hear about the person like Marion Dora, that can't be reached, you just have to try and get in contact with them. So that was the main obstacle, and what attracted me to the to Marion Dora. I think that it was so in this digital world. He's one of the few persons that you, I mean, few directors in a way that you can't reach, that you really have to try and reach. Um, and and when after that, it was just, I wanted to, since I read so many rumors about Melancholie der Engel and also Cannibal, um, I wanted to meet him to find out if they were true. And I also wanted me um, to be with him when he had a chance to relive this shooting once again and capture that on film. Um, and I think that he wanted to do it as well. I think as some kind of a maybe cleansing experiment.
So I mean, did you feel? I mean, a lot of times directors feel like they've captured something magical on, film and everything. Did you feel that as you helped him revisit this time and period in his life? Did you feel like you captured something unique and wholly yours on film?
Well, from yes, when I got back home, but when I was there, I was I was really, I was nervous a lot. It's hard to spend 4 days in a car with someone that you really don't know. It's hard to spend 4 days with a car with someone you do know. But um, when it comes to sitting with um, a guy that you have only met one time before, um, it's a lot of tension within yourself in ways. Um, so when I was shooting, I was mainly concentrating on the situation and the just uh, survive the weekend, I guess. But also we had a lot of good scenes together or meetings together. I like him very much, and he's one of the few persons that I can really speak with and discuss filmmaking and discuss directors. He's worked a lot with just Franco before, and he has a lot of knowledge when it comes to Italian horror and that kind of stuff. So we talked a lot, and it was really interesting. But when it came to the shooting part, it was pretty frustrating, actually.
Was he a difficult subject to film? I mean, was he problematic or?
Well, yeah, no, it was pretty easy to film, but it was a lot of work in the editing where I had to pixel his face and also pixel the car plates and
right, because he's very reclusive. Like you said,
yeah.
he employs many different identities or pseudonyms, like fake names, aliases to obscure his true identity. So
I think he has around 8 different pseudonyms, I think.
yeah. That's probably for his own safety. Hasn't he gotten death threats, I believe?
Yeah, I believe he has. And I mean, he has different lives besides this life, and I think it's probably for the best of him to act this way, because when you surf online and you read all this hate towards this director, it's I wouldn't want to be him in this situation, so I can understand him.
Well, to have a vision like his, except for the animal cruelty,
Yeah.
To have his kind of vision must be so difficult every day. I mean, I get a lot of pushback from this community. This writers community I used to be in, and that's only I'm sure a fraction of what he goes through with people from all different communities every day.
Yeah.
Now, this movie's about an hour long or something, and it's your first one, right?
Well, yeah, I made some shorts before, but this is the first thing that I would really like to have my name on, I think.
And I am only vaguely familiar with your true horror books.
Yeah.
What are some of the other?
They're in Swedish, so it's hard for anyone outside Sweden to understand them. But they're basically books filled with interviews with people that I find to be interesting, mainly horror directors.
Okay, like for instance, you would speak with the guy who directed Necromantic, for instance, right? Do you speak with him?
Yeah, I met him. I think it was my first subject for my first book. I think when I went to Berlin and met him at a restaurant, and that's the stuff I like to do. I would love to do only those things in my life, but I can't really afford it because it doesn't pay anything. So it's but that's what that's the joy of my life. I think, to meet bizarre characters and discuss films with them.
Well, I don't know. I'm not an expert on Sweden's economy, but speaking from an American point of view, you know what else doesn't pay? Living. No. Living. Yeah. I mean, that might be a universal thing these days, but living itself does not pay, much less doing what you love.
That's true.
As for this film, where are you at with it right now? I understand. Do you have a distributor? It's set to premiere at some festival, right?
Well, it's available on DVD. I think it's an Austrish company called Black Lava that's been releasing it, and only in a not that many copies, but it's available. And then it's going to be screened at the Starburst Festival in Manchester, I think, in August. And also the Butt Festival in Netherlands in August as well, I think, and some festival in Mexico, I think, in September. So it's the thing is that the interest has been really kind of huge for this small film that it really is. So I've been getting a lot of emails and Facebook messages about the film, and so this is really something I'd like to experience again. So maybe another movie in a year or two, I think.
Excellent. Maybe you could make something that could rival this film, Melancholie der Engel, as even more grotesque or more profound. Who knows?
Well, right now I'm interested in making something more. Not maybe more extreme, but more sexual and more into that kind of horror sex scene. So we'll see what it is, but I always find it interesting to meet people that crosses borders and that maybe lives another life than myself.
Well, one thing's for sure, if you need any actors or actresses to piss, shit, or puke on each other, I'm sure that you can get in touch with Marion's gallery of characters, right?
Well, that's not that easy, actually. But I think that if you're interested in that, you can always find persons that are willing to go that way, that line, I think.
True.
But it's I think it's going to be another documentary or something. No feature films or anything like that.
What are some other subjects you're passionate about?
Well, right now it's always been. I always watch a lot of films, and the genre that turns me on most, I guess, is still horror movies. I've always loved, exploitation movies from the 70s, 80s, Italian horror, non-exploitation, stuff like that. Mainly, still mainly 70s, 80s for me, I guess. And then there's experimental new stuff like the Bunny game that came 4 or 5 years ago, I think.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that one so much.
No, what I mean, you can still appreciate. I think that in many ways is the same as Melancholie der Engel. But it's more. It's hard to know what's the feature film and what happened for real. And I kind of like the way that it crosses borders as well. But I can also understand that you don't like it. It's
Well, I mean, it's just I was expecting more from it.
yeah.
I mean, it's fine if you want to torture, this girl for what is
Yeah.
an hour and 15 minutes or something. But I felt like there was, and this is going to sound cliche, but there was no point to it.
No, it isn't. But I think it's hard to pinpoint what makes a movie for you. When I did see that movie Buddy Game, um, I liked it, but what got me was the final 5 or 10 minutes when she's completely drained of energy and life, or uh, and that part was so sad for me, and it felt so real, and I um, for me it was hard to actually to finish watching the movie.
If I remember correctly, it's been a long time, but she's had her head shaved, she's been
Yeah,
raped, tortured, beaten, strung up, maybe even crucified at one point, and he gives her the key to her chains and lets her go or something, and she
yeah.
breaks down into hysterics laughing.
Mm.
And does he shoot her in the back of the head, or does she actually get to escape?
I don't remember actually.
I don't either.
No, I think he gives her to another truck driver in the end or something.
That is
I think,
harsh.
yeah, I think so. Truck drivers, yeah.
That is
Well,
harsh. Who knows what goes on in the back of those
yeah,
cabs, you know?
many things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I understand that this movie is for pre order still, right?
yeah. Bunny Game? No,
No, no, no, no, no. Revisiting
no. I
Melancholy?
think it's been released. I think it was released maybe a month ago or something.
Okay. Where can we find that?
You can buy it at blacklava.at, I think. Blackloveentertainment.at.
Send me the link if you could,
Yeah,
and I'll
sure.
be glad to include that with this
Yeah,
when it
great.
goes up. Any final words before we wrap this up?
Well, you'll see the movie. Well, not my movie, but see Marion Dora's movie. I think it deserves it, and I
Well,
think that
see both of them. Yeah.
yeah, see maybe as it's going to be shown in Manchester, I think that Marion Dora's movie is going to be shown first, and then my movie. So I think that was one of the ideas, first of all, to make my movie as an extras for his movies, like a DVD extra scene or something.
Hmm.
So I think it's the perfect complement to his movie, I think.
Okay. Well, Magnus, I wish you the best, and if those books ever become available in English, or
Yeah,
you have another documentary, I'd be glad to have you back on to talk about them.
great. Thanks to you.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Guys, I'm just gonna go here. Um, I usually try to have a roadmap of where the points I want to make when I do these, but I made a promise to God that I was going to testify to something that happened a few months back. It was in April of 2017 when I started experiencing chest pains and a feverish heat that haunted me for several weeks. Uh, it even interfered with my enjoyment of WrestleMania, which almost never happens. I came off hydrocodone after over 10 years of use, habitual, compulsive use, uh, due to legitimate pain. I came off of that in, I want to say, February, and have not really dabbled in it as frequently as I had before. And I think the reason is because the formula changed. Now they have the manufacturers. There's some Israeli company that's making it or something. I don't know, but it does not work the same. Cheap bastards. Anyway, the bottom line is, I don't know if it was the painkillers that had been warding this off or if it was the effect of going off the painkillers, but I noticed that I was hot more often, and I was waking up in the middle of the night in a way that did not feel healthy or safe. And my heart would flutter, and I would struggle to get back to sleep and have to double dose myself with blood pressure medicine. And at the same time, I was having acid reflux issues, which I tried to drown with Pepto Bismol, and it was not happening. It was very uncomfortable to be in my own skin during that entire time, and every night the intensity of my prayers would be so fierce as to think that it was the end. But I remember saying, Lord, if you save me, I will tell everyone about this. And I felt something in my chest. It was like a massage almost. And I felt it ease off, and I felt my body cool down immediately. And I had been sleeping in a room with two fans going and the window open. And it was only through this that the heat was able to be alleviated. And I think that the final chest pains dispersed, I want to say the weekend of Easter. That's around the time that it dispersed. And I said, Lord, if I can make it through Easter, can I? And I will tell everyone that you saved me. And he did. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. I know that the abuse I put my body through was enough that I was facing real complications. But God, Jesus, they saved me. They healed me. And I believe that that's why I'm speaking to you here today, at least in a as full and complete a state of physical well-being that can be expected, considering how unhealth conscious or health unconscious that I am. I am very self-indulgent with my eating habits and my self-medicating. But I do have legitimate pain that I have to treat, so I'm just not using hydrocodone to do it anymore. And I didn't have to go through any rehab bullshit or 12-step program. I just stopped. I stopped calling the doctors and pestering them 3 times a week, 3 times every 3 or 4 weeks for a refill, and sounding like a neurotic 45-year-old bored housewife with nothing to do after Maury Povich has ended. I just stopped. I didn't victimize myself. Thankfully, I have other medications to balance out the treatment of pain. But God and Jesus did restart my heart. And I hope that when eternity comes, I am able and allowed to, permitted to inherit the kingdom of God. And I don't think that the tone and spirit of this program is necessarily totally in line with Christ's teachings, but it's still me, and I still have to scream. I have to scream here in this one place that is safe and sacred, that is quiet, where I can hear my own echo. Whatever, I don't care if you call it an echo chamber. Anyway, that is my testimony, and I am alive, I am well, and no one can stop me. Thank you, God. Amen. Gary Busey Loves You by the Anglophile network of Buseianity. Gary Busey loves you. He can't stop thinking about you. He's tried to move on, but everything he does reminds him of you. You don't like admitting it, but Gary Busey is the best thing that ever happened to you. You wish you had been nicer to Gary Busey when he was around. Gary Busey fuels his cars with ragdoll parts. He has no cars, though, so he drives a Haruki Murakami, which is a rider and a car at the same time, but also neither. He fuels his Haruki Murakami with funhouse mirrors. When Gary Busey goes on vacation, he makes a trip to Noir Orleans, a town in black and white where everyone is a detective and weathermen measure the volume of jazz music instead of temperatures. Gary Busey grew up here, but he had to get away because he was overqualified for the job of private investigator. When Gary Busey blows bubbles, his breath crystallizes into glass. These are not the kind of bubbles you want to burst. They shatter in all directions. Gary Busey has to be careful not to hurt people with the bubbles he blows. Gary Busey has the solution to ending wars once and for all. It involves naked women with weapons. Gary also holds the cure for cancer. It involves motorcycle accidents and naked women with weapons. The pharmaceutical industry has suppressed this information. In the meantime, they work diligently to patent a new pill with the motorcycle accidents and naked women with weapons as the primary ingredients. Gary Busey once saved your life, but you don't like to talk about it. You collapsed in your yard of a heart attack. He stopped what he was doing, which was marketing a cookbook of roadkill recipes under the pseudonym Gillis McBean, to come and save you. He was naked except the acoustic guitar strapped to his shoulders. He stood there for 2 hours negotiating with your heart to stop attacking you. After an entire set of Buddy Holly tunes, your heart relented. You were resuscitated. Gary Busey often considers writing a Kafka novel, but then gets distracted and leaves them poolside in his pyramid. He leaves his Kafka novels laying for so long that they develop minds of their own. They grow insect legs and wander off into the world. Busey's most well-known novel that wandered off goes by the name of Charlie Sheen and resides in Los Angeles. Busey and Sheen don't speak. Busey denies having written Charlie Sheen and secretly wishes he had not. One thing Gary Busey doesn't regret, has never regretted, is loving you. That never changed. Music for this episode was provided by Love Under Will, Gerhard Hines, and PurplePlanet.com.
I've murdered them all. I'm God and I've killed everybody. Now what?